In the weeks leading up to Uganda's recent general election, the presence of security forces became impossible to overlook. Soldiers and police were not just on standby. They were deeply woven into the fabric of the campaign period and election day itself, redefining the political environment and affecting how citizens experienced this pivotal democratic moment. What was officially described as ensuring peace and stability by authorities was experienced by many voters and observers as a powerful lens through which the election was viewed and interpreted. Across Kampala and other major urban centers, visible deployments of the Uganda People's Defense Forces and police units accompanied campaign events and polling stations alike. The government defended this deployment as necessary to prevent violence and protect voters, pointing to past elections that saw clashes and tensions. But critics and opposition groups felt it had a different effect. It underscored an environment where the fear of force loomed over exercising political rights. Before we begin, make sure you're subscribed and have notifications turned on, because the role of security forces in Uganda's election isn't just a backdrop, it's one of the defining forces shaping how this vote unfolded and what it could mean for the country's future. In the run-up to the vote, activists, journalists, and human rights defenders reported increasing incidents of arbitrary arrests and detentions linked to political activity. International observers and rights organizations documented allegations of excessive use of force, including the deployment of tear gas and water cannons at opposition rallies. Some instances even involved live ammunition being used to disperse crowds, leading to injuries and, in a few reported cases, fatalities. Such measures were often justified under the banner of controlling misinformation, maintaining order, or preventing disruptions. One of the most significant moves came just days before voting, when mobile internet services were temporarily shut down nationwide. Ugandan authorities said the blackout was meant to limit the spread of misinformation and protect the integrity of the vote. However, many critics argued that cutting off digital communications served to isolate opposition supporters and reduce transparency at a critical moment. For the main opposition party and its supporters, the effects were tangible. Campaign rallies were disrupted, venues were difficult to access, and public gatherings were often met with a heavy security response. International observers noted concerns around intimidation and the uneven access to public space and media platforms for different parties. In some urban areas, police and other units were accused of restricting the movement of opposition allies, limiting their ability to mobilize and communicate with potential voters. The presence of security forces didn't end with Election Day. As results began to circulate, protests erupted in several neighborhoods, particularly in Kampala. National Unity Platform (NUP) supporters, frustrated with reported irregularities and delays in counting, took to the streets to express their dissent. Response by the police included crowd control measures and further arrests, reflecting how deeply entrenched security responses had become in the overall electoral climate. Political leaders inside Uganda's parliament also weighed in, with some members expressing concern over reports of excessive force and the targeting of opposition supporters. These lawmakers argued that the actions of security agencies had gone beyond maintaining security and veered into a realm that could undermine public confidence in the electoral process itself. At higher diplomatic and international levels, human rights officials and observer missions called for restraint and respect for the rights of peaceful assembly and free expression. They urged authorities to ensure that security measures support, rather than suppress, genuine democratic participation. In doing so, they underscored an important balance that security forces everywhere face during elections, protecting citizens while respecting their rights to engage in the political process. The military's involvement in civic life in Uganda is not new, and its influence has been shaped by decades of politics, where the line between public order and political management has often been blurred. However, this election highlighted how pivotal that role can become when it intersects with modern expectations of democratic processes. As citizens navigate these dynamics, their perceptions of legitimacy, fairness, and safety remain deeply affected by the actions of security agencies. Looking ahead, the story of Uganda's elections is likely to shape discussions on how democracies can manage security without dampening political freedoms. Whether these patterns will evolve or remain entrenched in future electoral cycles is a question that Ugandans and observers around the world will continue to watch closely. If you want clear and balanced explanations of global developments like this, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because understanding how elections really work matters for all of us.